Hello, do you hear me? If you hear this, blink twice. Oh, wait, never mind. I swear this intro actually has something to do with the video, so stick around. You might laugh, cry, or even accidentally learn something new. Let's dive in before I overhype it. Let's go. Imagine a world where wildfires rage uncontrollably, coastlines disappear beneath rising tides, and entire ecosystems collapse in a matter of decades. No, this isn't straight out of a doomsday film. It's called climate change. The science is clear. Over the past century, the Earth's average temperature has risen by 1.2 degrees Celsius, a seemingly small change with devastating consequences. Global carbon emissions reach 37 billion metric tons, which is 100 times the weight of all humans in 2022 alone. And without immediate action, the snowball effect will soon become an avalanche. If we continue on this trajectory, we may soon face a need for serious adaptations. The existence of humanity itself could actually be at stake. Unless we want to see places like the Outer Banks becoming coastal regions, we must stop treating climate change as a distant possibility and pursue immediate, decisive steps to reduce emissions. Now let's have Danny explain what the hell this actually is.
Thank you, Angel. Climate change refers to long-term shifts and alterations in temperature patterns and weather conditions. The most well-known and most likely to be felt is global warming. Other side effects include rising sea levels, shifts in precipitation patterns, more frequent and intense extreme weather events, and disruptions to ecosystems. The primary cause of recent climate change is the accumulation of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, particularly carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide. And of course, the gases that come out of your dad after Taco Bell night. These gases can be produced naturally through Earth's excretions, but are most often produced by human activities, such as the burning of fossil fuels like coal, oil, or natural gas. Deforestation and agricultural practices are often large contributors. The result of these processes trap heat from the sun in the Earth's atmosphere, leading to the greenhouse effect, which increases global temperatures. Scientific consensus based on decades of research and data shows that climate change is accelerating at an unprecedented rate due to human influence. But really, what don't you understand about climate change? From a public perspective, most people tend to focus on familiar culprits like car emissions, coal plants, or livestock. The solutions are often equally juvenile: ride a bike, put up a solar panel, etc. But let's take a step back. In reality, we have built whole industries around these conveniences. Sure, we've made things easier, safer, and more enjoyable, but at the cost of ripping apart our own life support system. From the cars we drive, the food we eat, roads we walk on, to clothes and gadgets, we have created a lifestyle where convenience comes ahead of Mother Earth. According to the Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA, landfills are the most significant source of methane. Finally, cows can be off the hook from big methane. Landfills make up 15% of the world's methane emissions. This makes about 3.5% of total greenhouse gases. Landfills create around 2 gigatons of CO2, which is similar to the entire aviation industry. To put this in perspective, a single gigaton, or just a mere 50% of what landfills produce in 1 year, is equal to 3 billion barrels of oil. 2 gigatons is about the size of 220,000 Olympic-sized swimming pools. Land use and deforestation contribute to around 12% of global greenhouse emissions as of 2023. This translates to 8 billion gigatons of CO2 equivalent annually. This all includes emissions from deforestation, forest degrading, and agricultural land replacement. This is similar to the CO2 emissions from global transportation, which makes around 14% of global greenhouse gas emissions, or around 9 gigatons of CO2 annually. The shipping and steel industry create roughly the same CO2 emissions. The steel industry makes around 2 gigatons of CO2 emissions annually. The shipping industry makes around 2 gigatons as well. To put this in perspective, that's like covering the entire country of Mexico with CO2. Now, let's switch it up to Angel for the economic dilemma.
Thank you, Danny. In the realm of climate change, the economic disparity of those who produce the most emissions are always people who own and operate these corporations. There will always be a hurdle no company is willing to jump over to solve climate change, and that's money. In my opinion, the relation of climate change and wealth are integral and undeniable. Let's talk about it. Countries with lower exports and imports, often in the earlier stages of development, tend to experience a rise in CO2 emissions as they industrialize. This is because they are rapidly building their economies, much like the expansive era of today's advanced nations. However, there is a blatant issue when it comes to the global distribution of emissions, the wealthiest elites of society. What about this? Globally, the richest 10% are responsible for around 50% of emissions, while the lower class contributes a mere 7%. Even more striking, the top 1% alone generate about 15% of global emissions. So while you're still broke, say, the rich are not only generating money, but also CO2. It's clear that wealth and carbon footprints are closely tied. And while reducing the emissions of the wealthy would help, it's not a comprehensive solution. It doesn't address the broader, systematic issues driving CO2 emissions. Low to middle income nations may produce less carbon per capita compared to high income nations, but their total emissions are still on the rise due to industrialization. Countries like Brazil, India, and China are becoming significant contributors. China makes more CO2 than the entire Western Hemisphere, by the way. However, their per person emissions still remain lower than in countries such as the US or much of Europe. Low-income countries have minimal emissions, but as they develop, their footprints are expected to grow. This brings us to a critical crossroad. As the wealth continues to shift upwards, so do the CO2 emissions. Should we discourage developing nations from advancing? Hell no! Such actions would not only feel deeply unfair, but would be viewed as holding them back. The challenge lies in finding a path forward that balances development with sustainability. Now I'm gonna pass it to the sickly one.
This guy. Okay. Here's what is solvable and unsolvable. We've made significant strides in addressing challenges like aviation emissions and landfills, but there's one crucial hurdle we can't entirely overcome: fat. Manufacturing zero emissions food is nearly impossible due to the unavoidable use of manure, fertilizers, and the transportation required to move these goods. Take rice, for example. Rice alone contributes 1.3% to global greenhouse gas emissions. Now let's look at the bigger picture. 57 to 60% of food-related emissions come from animal-based products, despite these only providing 18% of the world's calories and 37% of its protein. As civilizations advance, the consumption of meat increases, driving emissions even higher. Thanks, America. Currently, half of the world's habitable land is used for agriculture, primarily for meat and dairy. To put that into perspective, it's equivalent to the entire landmass of North and South America combined. A staggering 87% of grazing land is dedicated to raising animals for their products, while 33% of croplands are used for growing actual crops. Not all of that is for human consumption, though. 38% is for animal feed, and only 10% is directly for human living. Vegan teacher really thought she did something. Meat and dairy products are increasingly scrutinized for their environmental impact, but realistically, they aren't going away anytime soon. The most damning byproduct of the meat and dairy industry is its role in deforestation. Eliminating meat alone won't fix climate change, and the same could be said for the other sectors. Industries like air travel, global shipping, mining, and farming are integral to keeping our modern society functioning. So the question is, what could possibly replace these systems? The answer isn't simple, but it's clear that sustainability must be balanced with the needs of a thriving global civilization. Angel is once again beating down my door to read the next section.
Yo, you done yet?
Nah, bro, what?
Oh no, get the... Alright, it's my turn now. Let's consider the cost of some of these current solutions. Direct air capture, or DAC, or DAC if you're feeling lazy like me, is a promising technology, emerging as a concept in 1999. The process captures CO2 from the air, obviously, and stores it underground or repurposes it for products. However, the catch is that implementing DAC on a large scale would cost trillions of dollars annually. Trillions. Which is about half of the US's GDP. So, why don't we just tax heavy polluting industries like steel? They're all doing it anyways, right? Well, that's where things get complicated. Higher taxes would definitely drive up the cost of these products, And if demand drops, companies could face bankruptcy. Why not have the government foot the bill? The answer is, international governments fear the economic impacts, including inflation. Ironically, they already have to subsidize gas and oil to keep prices down. We can see how well that's working in the US. This is the hidden layer most people don't see. It's not as simple as just taxing polluters or adopting clean tech. That's why carbon capture, while innovative, isn't a silver bullet yet due to the sky-high cost. I mean, trillions of dollars a year? Like, come on. Anyways, there are those who will argue for more radical changes, like moving away from capitalism or making markets even freer without subsidies. Others suggest that degrowth scaling back as a society might be the only path forward. But here's the truth. No political system, past or present, has successfully tackled upon carbon emissions. Every year we delay this action, the harder it will be to avoid extreme, irreversible consequences. The challenge isn't just technological, it's deeply political and economical. With so many opposing viewpoints, finding common ground and solutions won't be easy. But what's clear is that time is running out, and bold decisions need to be made immediately. We all contribute to carbon emissions, some more than others. But what can you actually do to help? Well, if you're feeling extra committed, you can abandon your cozy home and build a hut in the middle of the forest and live like a modern-day hermit. Or maybe you'll prefer to give up meat entirely, bidding farewell to burgers and steaks, and become a devoted vegan. Then, there's the option of splurging on your shiny futuristic electric car and silently glide past your gas guzzlers with a smug grin. The truth is, most of us aren't jumping at the chance to ditch our homes, lifelong food favorites, or cars just yet. In reality, in the race to get the climate change queen, most of us are just pawns in this everlasting game of chess. Has there ever been a time when emissions were in an all-time low? Well, let's look at a few years back. You know, during that pandemic no one wants to talk about. You know, when we all stayed indoors, businesses came to a halt, and the world took a collective breather. Surely, with all that, global emissions must have plummeted, right? Maybe 20, 30, or even 40%. Well, the actual drop was 7%. That's right. After months of shutdowns and staying home in our pajamas, we barely made a dent. To put it into perspective, even if the most eco-dedicated person managed to live 70 years without producing a single emission, which is an impossible feat by the way, they'll only shave off about a single second from the world's carbon clock. So while individual actions are noble, it turns out the climate clock doesn't exactly notice if one person goes above and beyond. Now I'm gonna pass weather to Danny.
I am now back on the mic to talk about one of my favorite subjects, meteorology. Recent studies are sounding the alarm on climate change, and it's not looking so good. The planet is throwing some wild weather tantrums with extreme heat waves, massive floods, and relentless wildfires all on the rise. In 2023 alone, we've witnessed Canada's worst wildfire season on record, torching over 25 million acres and choking North America with smoke, just like Snoop Dogg during his blunt rotation. Here in PA, our air quality, or AQI, was over 10 times the usual level, making the air dangerous to breathe for long periods of time. Meanwhile, deadly floods have ravaged China and India, proving that climate change isn't just knocking at the door, it's kicking it down. Glaciers, precipitation's largest collector, aren't faring any better. A NASA-funded study suggests that a modest 1.5 degrees Celsius rise in global temperatures could lead to nearly half of the world's glaciers disappearing by 2100. As the sea level rises, our supply of freshwater goods and even our own vacations would be at risk of flooding. As for wildfires, they're becoming the uninvited guests that no one can get rid of. Their devastating blazes that hit Maui in 2023 are a part of a growing trend of infernos fueled by drier, hotter conditions. And the kicker? These fires pump even more carbon into the atmosphere, making the whole climate change situation a vicious, smoky cycle. Despite advancements in renewable energy, the world's pace of action is still dragging. If we want to keep global temperatures from rising above the 1.5 degrees Celsius threshold, we've got to step it up. Otherwise, the climate won't just change, it'll go into a full-blown metamorphosis. I want future generations relishing the outdoors, breathing fresh air and enjoying those delightful mild summers. Ignoring these issues is like letting an illness fester in the heart of Mother Nature. Let us take action now to ensure a vibrant, healthy planet where people can enjoy the great life vessel we call Earth. Your time on Earth is already limited. Let it not be further shortened by ignorance to this encroaching issue. Thank you for watching.